In a mysterious land, a place forgotten by time, lives one of nature's greatest secrets. Many believe it's only a legend, but there are those who have seen it, appearing out of mist and jungle like a ghost, to haunt this exotic, emerald world as a living reminder of nature's power and magic. At the beginning of time, the whole world was white with ice and snow. Then Raven flew down from the heavens and made the world green, as it is now. But he also wanted to make something to remind him of the beginning and its whiteness. So on these islands, he went among the bears, the black bears, and every 10th one he turned white. That way he could look at them and remember the world as it once was. And then Raven issued a decree. The white bears would live here forever in peace. On the Pacific coast of Canada, 700 miles north of Vancouver, British Columbia, and impossible to reach except by boat or airplane, lie the Mid-Coast Islands. It's a place so isolated, so removed, it's called the Forgotten Coast. Since the last ice age, these islands have remained uninhabited, except for First Nations people who have thrived here in one of the richest, most diverse ecosystems on Earth. It's a rugged, wild landscape of towering slopes, deep fjords, and lush valleys, teeming with life, the most abundant to be found anywhere in North America. On every shoreline, a jungle of moss-laden old-growth forest forms an impenetrable barrier. Behind it, a prehistoric world is revealed. These coniferous giants are the last reminder of a forest of cedar and spruce that once carpeted the earth. But in this land of giants, only the sea rules. Here, a delicate interplay between fresh and salt water nurtures hundreds of species. From the microscopic to the majestic. Here, the raw, wild power of nature inspired the creation of one of the world's most distinct cultures. Cedar burial boxes are hidden throughout this island labyrinth. Ancient remains of the forefathers of the Kitasoo First Nation, who have called this place home since the Raven first turned this world green. In all of ancient America, only the cultures of the Aztec and Inca equal the sophistication of the Kitasoo, one of many Northwest tribes who embraced this rich land and celebrated it in a rich culture. In their world, nature is a generous spirit, capable of transforming itself into living, breathing entities to ensure the constant return of abundant food resources, like the salmon. Today, the Kitasoo live in the village of Klemtu, the only human presence for hundreds of miles in any direction. On the surface, a modern, thriving community. But life here is, as it's always been, a daily ritual of harvesting nature's bounty. Like all life on the mid-coast, salmon is the primary food source in Klemtu, still smoked the old way, in cedar shacks over cedar shakes for hours on end. The raven, eagle, wolf, and orca, traditional symbols of the band, and the potlatch, an ancient celebration to welcome new chiefs or remember old ghosts, also remain important and sacred. The Mid-Coast Islands are home, a place where nature is rich and tangible. To the Kitasoo, it is always there, with one exception.
As old as I am, I've never seen a live one, but my son has seen it, you know.
That's when I seen it in Indian River. There was a whole bunch of us that stopped then to watch it.
I've only saw it twice, and that's the only time I've seen it, not very close.
It just never happened, you know, and I never really knew about them myself either, you know, and I never ever went looking for it.
Mysterious, elusive. Even the people who live here have rarely seen it. And those lucky enough to meet the ghost bear of the rainforest, so says another legend, are given the gift of predicting the future. In the land of the Kitasoo, all animals have a special significance. The raven, eagle, wolf, and orca are powerful symbols of life in one of the richest and wildest places on Earth. But the ghost bear is special. It defines this land and the people as rare as the bear itself.
The bear is part of the symbol of the Kitasoo, and it's a very, very sacred symbol to us. It's part of our strength, just like the symbol of our four crests we have. It's a symbol of where we get our strength. I saw the first white bear as a child. That's where I first seen my white bear.
Only here, in the rainforests of the Mid-Coast Islands, lives a unique subspecies of the black bear, so isolated for so long from mainland bears that every 10th one, as says the legend, is indeed white. This 5-year-old male, a teenager in bear years, is not an albino, or even a cousin of the polar bear. Biologists have tried for over a century to solve the riddle of how and why its coat turned white, with no success. We don't even know how many there are, appropriate characteristics for a ghost. All we know for sure is that they only live here, in a world, as the Kitasoo say, put together by the raven. Our teenager appears to be enjoying a good scratch, but he's actually marking his home territory. Marked trees are signposts in the bear community and a practical way to prevent confrontations before they occur. The scent he leaves on this tree will let other bears know whose home this is and how big the current resident is. In nature, size is everything, and if a larger, older bear does come along, he too might mark this tree, telling our teenager it might be wise to move on. It's a lesson learned well by the Kitasoo, who clearly marked their own territory here many centuries ago.
We're in a place known to us Kitasoo as Disju, and it's a gathering place of the Kitasoo people. It's an identity thing, you know, with our people. I only knew of it maybe when I was about 16 or 17, and I was out trapping with my father out here, and he brought me here too, and that was the first I ever saw this. You know, like it's a last remaining of what our ancestors had when we lived all around this area. It's all part of our territory, the whole thing, everything, you know, like we exist from the sea. We live on the land.
Bears do rely heavily on food from the sea, especially during the annual salmon spawn. But right now, the streams are too low, and all a bear or fish can do is wait for the late summer rains to fill them up. Some salmon have made headway, and catching the early arrivals is quite possible, if he can find one that matches his own size. It's also possible this 2-year-old cub has a white sister, brother, mother, or father. Although the origin of the recessive gene that turned the black bear's coat white remains a scientific question mark, fact is, the black bears here can and do create white offspring. In the bear hierarchy, white or black makes no difference, and an older bear is just a bigger bear who's found someone poaching his territory. For the cub, it means the end of a day's fishing. Peering down from their treetop vantage points, bald eagles also wait eagerly for the salmon spawn to really begin. If our teenager appears nervous, it's not because hunters are stalking the forest. Few do, but hunting is allowed here. And although the white bear is protected by law, black bears also carry the recessive white gene. Problem is, how would you know? The Kitasoo have never hunted the white bear. and elders still tell stories about its sacred spirit.
I've always heard them talking about a white bear. That's why my grandparents used to tell me, said not to hurt them or do anything to them, because maybe there's something special about them. There's a reason why they're different from the others.
Only here, bears have no fear of humans, and may have no concept of fear at all. When he does see us, he makes a habit of looking us straight in the eye. In all of nature, there is, perhaps, no experience like it. These temperate rainforests produce 4 times more life than any other on Earth. They exist because these islands are the first landmass moisture-laden winds hit after an unbroken 9,000-mile journey across the Pacific Ocean. Which means a massive amount of rainfall, over 50 feet of it a year. From California to Alaska, the entire West Coast was once a continuous, gigantic forest. But other than here, most of it is long gone. Tall stands of ancient timber dominate the landscape, denying sunlight and easy access. In this temperate jungle, only 4-legged creatures can travel easily. Where sunlight does break through, mostly along stream banks and tidal flats, over 500 varieties of flowers, shrubs, and bushes thrive, nurturing man, beast, and the forest itself. But without a doubt, the red cedar is the tree of life. Hundreds of years of slow growth create a wood soft, pliable, yet so straight-grained, the Kitasoo learned to peel off 2-inch planks 20 feet long, leaving these trees alive to grow for another millennium. 1,000 years before Christianity, the Kitasoo were building cedar-hewn houses, dugout canoes, and carving into history one of the world's great artistic cultures.
Everything that makes us what we are is all around us. The medicines they gather from the forests, the food they gather from the seas. It sustained our people for, thousands and thousands of years. If you talk about the food that you get out of the ocean, the medicines and the materials that you get from the forest, they're all important. They played an important role in our people for as long as our people have been here.
If you take the land away from me, then I may be gone too, because the land looks after everything, the rivers, meat, berries, traditional items such as herbs that we use for medicine. All of that, are nurtured by the land.
By reaping only what the rain and sea had sown, the most complex civilization to ever emerge without benefit of agriculture was created here. Living from nature, they depended on the earth for signs, like a bear's arrival on the coast. Rarely will the white bear come down from the mountains, preferring to feast on berries and insects until the salmon spawn beckons. Yet wherever it goes, the bear is a guide and a teacher.
Well, it represents many things. Now, the bear tells you that there are berries there. The bear tells you because of their presence there that they're salmon-bearing river. All of those things, you know, those are, when you see a bear, it's a good sign that there's life somewhere, you know, that indicates salmon berries and stuff that, you know, nobody would know of.
In a few short months, hibernation begins, and this scarred 15-year-old's instincts have moved into overdrive, telling him it's time to eat as many fish as possible, as fast as possible. During the salmon spawn, a bear will consume about 700 fish, increasing his body fat by almost 40%. When this old veteran settles down in his winter den, he'll sleep until spring, burning off the body fat he's storing up now. Females will give birth during hibernation, and the cubs must nourish themselves on their mother's enriched high-fat milk until she wakes up. Life has been good to our veteran. He's seen a lot of summers come and go, and should live to see many more. Bears in the wild can live almost 25 years, but here, with so much food around, they have a good chance of living a lot longer. Some bears never fish at all, keeping an eye on smaller bears' success instead. It's not lazy. For a big bear, just practical. But our veteran shouldn't worry. At over 400 pounds, he's a big bear. Summer is the only season when rainfall is measured in inches rather than feet, making streams unpredictably rise and fall, and stalling the salmon's run for home. The best time to catch them is yet to come. Black bears rarely forage in the heat of the day, preferring early morning or evening to feed. Their black coats soak up the hot sun like a sponge, and summer days are better spent in the cool forest canopy, fast asleep. A white bear with a white coat doesn't have as much of a problem with the heat, giving him more opportunities to feed undisturbed. Today, the sun is too hot even for our teenager, but he has his own ideas about cooling off. Time off is a concept even a bear understands. He should enjoy it while he can. Soon enough, this pool will be teeming with thousands of visitors. As the Kitasoo say, they live on the land, but live from the sea. Halibut and herring, crab, prawns, sea urchins, and sea cucumber are harvested throughout the year. But the mainstay of all life in these islands is the salmon. And right now, everyone and everything waits for its annual return.
I can understand why they picked this area for their main village site. They have resources here available for them year-round. Salmon not only nourished our people, it also gave us the opportunity to trade with other communities for things such as grease and soapberries and seaweed. You know, there are other things that we don't have that aren't local to our territory here, and it gave us that opportunity to travel to other places and trade.
We can't see it yet, but out there, in the depths of the Pacific, a movable feast is coming right at us. The orca have traveled far to be the first in a long line of animals to gorge on massive numbers of spawning salmon. The life of the salmon is actually just one long round trip. A patient kingfisher pauses to check their progress. In this stream, there are now more than enough salmon to go around. Five species of salmon, sockeye and coho, chinook, chum, and pink, return in the millions each year to these islands to lay their eggs. Somehow, after traveling thousands of miles of Pacific Ocean, they've returned to the exact same streams they left 4 years ago, weighing less than an ounce. It's another mystery that science has yet to solve. Some believe they find their way home by smell. Decaying earth, rotting logs, salty mists, and wildflower blooms. Perhaps it's the rainforest they smell. Bears have the keenest sense of smell of any mammal. In fact, their face is almost all nose, and for them, the scent of salmon must be overpowering. They're also extremely intelligent animals. Although still young in bear years, our teenager has been around long enough to know where the stream is shallow and most likely to be packed with fish. His size is deceiving. Over a short distance, he can outrun a racehorse, but catching a sleek fish in calm water is destined for failure from the start. This bear knows a better spot. The Kitasoo know the good fishing spots too. Long before the use of nets, they built massive fish traps, piling rocks by hand, one by one, at the mouths of streams. At low tide, the salmon were trapped inside the shallow enclosure, allowing the Kitasoo to harvest them easily without needing a net, hook, or spear. It was a naturally practical idea. A young bald eagle is also taking advantage of the salmon's upstream struggle. He'd better, or he too could risk not surviving the winter. And winter is not far away. In the land of the ghost bear, life is complex and magical, ancient and timeless. Only nature decides when the rules will change. The autumn rains have arrived, and with them, no guarantee they'll ever end. Soon the downpour will fill the streams right up, and this time they'll stay up. The salmon harvest is about to begin. The autumn rains have arrived and will last until spring, with month after month passing without a sign of the sun. In the mystical half-light that remains, days are marked only by the cycles of the rain's intensity. Ferociously wet and relentlessly gray. Blurred by thick mist and fog, the separation between forest and ocean becomes indistinguishable. But in nature, there is no separation, and every living thing on the Rain Coast ultimately responds to the same ecological rhythm. For the bear, nature's timing is perfect, and now that the runoff remains constant, the life cycle of the rainforest is at its height. The spawn is gorging season for a lot of animals, and for all of them, finally, the salmon are on the move. If this black bear isn't careful, he could easily slip and drown, but he doesn't miss a step. Even for bears, fishing is a learned experience, with instincts enhanced by education. This bear has probably fished here since he was a cub and memorized every submerged rock ledge and eddy in this canyon. Places only this bear would know, where exhausted salmon escape the relentless current in calmer water, sandwiched between boulders. In there, salmon are served buffet style. The feast is so rich, bears discriminate between male and female salmon, ignoring the males to gorge on the rich red roe of females. They'll usually eat 3 or 4 times a day, resting for long periods in between, but instincts remind them never to relax. Next year's salmon spawn will be a long time coming. The Kitasoo have been fishing these waters for almost as long as the bears. And their instincts, too, are telling them it's time to stock up.
Food fishing is important for our community. We need this out here just to survive, to continue to live in the community as remote as ours. My father-in-law is fishing with me, so we're going to split it between the two of us. This area is actually rich in all sorts of sea resources. There's halibut to be caught out here, and rock cod, and there's spring salmon. As long as there have been Kitasoo, they've used this bay.
Our veteran has found his good fishing spot, too. Better yet, he's eating undisturbed, and it's fairly obvious why. His scarred nose bears the mark of a long and eventful life. For 15 years, he's remained king of the world. his world. The salmon struggle comes at a price, and fish that have injured themselves on rocks are everywhere. This 10-pound sockeye will do just fine. His paws are the size of baseball gloves, but they have the dexterity of human hands, allowing him to handle a salmon like a ground ball. Perhaps bears are closer to us than we'd like to think. The Kitasoo people think so. In their world, nature is a friend, and animals have spirits and can speak. It is a timeless state of grace, perfect, fragile, and traditionally maintained.
I think that when I come out here now, it's just starting to begin to get that feeling of tradition that we have out here. It's very important. You talk to the elders and they'll tell you that it sustained our people for, you know, thousands and thousands of years.
To the outside world, the white bear is another of nature's curiosities, and not, as it should be, a living reflection of ancient times, when legends were born of animals offering us the power of their knowledge. For the modern world, this bear is truly a ghost. The first salmon run of the season has been a good one, with more to come. Percy Starr's son Godfrey has pulled over 800 sockeye out of Kitasoo Bay, enough to keep many in the community busy canning and smoking into the fall. For these fishermen, it's time to head home. Autumn adds new colors to the spectrum of the rainforest. And as the salmon run begins to slow, so too does the life cycle of these islands, but not the streams. Their thunder will continue to roll down to the sea until summer returns. It's been a good fishing season for our teenager, too. After gaining almost 60 pounds in 6 weeks, he's stuffed with fish, and probably not too interested in eating another one for quite a while. He's very content and well prepared for winter. When he wakes up in the spring, he'll discover the world exactly as he left it. Except he'll be hungry once again. For the people in Klemtu, winter's perpetual rainstorms mark the longest season of the year. But the salmon will see them through. Before arriving home, fishing boats radio ahead, letting the community know they're loaded with fish and to come down to the docks to share in the harvest. Families take only what they need, jarring, canning, smoking, and freezing their primary food supply, which should last until next year. By the end of the spawn, hundreds of dead salmon have been flushed downstream, washing up on the island's rocky coastline and tidal flats. Down here, the scavenging is always good, and fresh salmon carcass deposited by the tide is about as close a bear can get to home delivery. Here in their island fortress, forgotten by time, the white bear lives happily in peace, just as the raven guaranteed over 10,000 years ago. There's an old Kitasoo story about a woman who married a bear. She was very beautiful, but young and foolish. One day, while watching a bear struggling to catch fish in a deep pool, she laughed at him, not knowing he hadn't eaten in days. The elders became angry and forced the woman to marry the bear and take care of him. At first, she was very unhappy, but she grew to love the bear and bore him 2 children, a boy and a girl. These were the first people to live in this place, and they promised never to laugh at nature again. No one really knows how or why its coat turned white. We don't even know how many exist. All we do know is what the Kitasoo have known since the beginning of time. The ghost bear haunts this rainforest, reminding all of us how nature once was, and at least here, still is.